all of politics Twitter was trending with Jimmy Dore. And now, this time, the hubbub against Jimmy Dore was that he interviewed one of these Bugaloo boys. This is a libertarian militia group. You know, I don't really know much about them. They wear Hawaiian shirts and they have guns, and some of them are extreme right-wingers and some of them are libertarians, and I don't know much about them. And so it was condemnation of Jimmy Dore for having dared bring a Bugaloo boy onto his program, and we were all supposed to hate Jimmy Dore. Well, you know, this Bugaloo boy who was on Jimmy Dore's program said he was against racism, said he was pro-LGBT, that he wasn't straight himself, and that he supported Black Lives Matter. Now, there's some people who've come out and said, well, the Bugaloo boys, they don't all think that. Well, look, okay, there's a couple layers to this, right? Because just like last time when they're going after Jimmy Dore for this, it's unacceptable. I mean, it's like 2 minutes hate. Someone's name is trending on Twitter, and we're all supposed to hate them with a passion. Let's talk about the layers to this, okay? First things first. Maybe you don't think what Jimmy Dore did was right. Okay? Let's just assume that you're one of the people that says never talk to the right, never talk to a Trump supporter. Okay, let's pretend for a moment that you're one of those. Okay? If you're one of those people, then you would think Jimmy Dore is wrong. And that's your right. You're allowed to think Jimmy Dore is wrong. He can be wrong. Someone can do something that you disagree with and still be a good person. Someone can do something you disagree with and still not be a Nazi and not be a fascist. But oh, no. If you read what was trending on social media, Jimmy Dore, Nazi, red, brown, crypto, white supremacist, it was like the most over-the-top thing. And it's like, okay, so first of all, assuming, you know, that they have this issue, you know, if you're on the left and Jimmy Dore's on the left, you can say, you know, I don't approve of what Jimmy Dore did, but you don't have to, you know, everyone you disagree with is not a secret Nazi, okay? Everyone you disagree with is not the equivalent of Adolf Hitler. Everyone you disagree with is not the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Right? If I didn't work with people with whom I disagree, I would never work with anybody. Every disagreement among leftists comes with a label, right? If somebody disagrees with you about some aspect of the trans issue, it's not that you disagree with them. That person becomes a transphobe, and they must be canceled, and no one should ever speak to them. If someone disagrees with you about an aspect of racial issues, right? They don't agree with one thing or another. It's not that they're just wrong. They're a racist, and they must be canceled. And if someone disagrees with you about some aspect of feminism, which, keep in mind, there's a lot of disagreements among feminists nowadays. They are not all on the same page about a lot of things. But if you disagree with somebody about some aspect of feminism, you become a sexist and a male show. I mean, this is toxic, okay? I work with all kinds of people with whom I disagree about lots of things, right? If you know, I like China. I think China is a force for good in the world. Maybe you don't. That's fine. We can agree to disagree about that. I don't think you're an anti-China CIA shill just because you disagree with China. I think you might be wrong. And you don't have to think I'm a fascist apologist for a repressive... How about we just disagree? Whatever happened to just plain disagreement among leftists? You think this, I think this. We don't agree on that. But you think this and you think this, and we agree on this. So let's work together around this thing we agree on. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to that? You don't have to hate Jimmy Dore just because you disagree with him. Second of all, though, was that interview wrong? No. Not in my book, it wasn't wrong. In my book, I don't think there's anything wrong with Jimmy Dore talking to a young person who is in the state of Michigan and says they support Black Lives Matter, says they're for LGBT rights, says that they're against, you know, the government that works for the corporations, you know, and happens to be in this right-wing militia group. There's nothing wrong with talking to that person. And Jimmy Dore, he heard what the person said, and he argued with what he said. And immediately after he argued with that person, a Trotskyite from the World Socialist website, Jerry White, which again, I don't agree with the World Socialist website. Don't agree with Trotskyism. Don't agree with how he treated Jimmy Dore and disrespected Jimmy Dore. But you know what? That doesn't mean I hate the World Socialist website. I think that they do good work on Syria, around Julian Assange. So again, so this guest from the World Socialist website gets on with Jimmy Dore. And he gets on with Jimmy Dore, and he's supposed to talk about this strike going on, but instead he just spends the whole interview berating Jimmy Dore. How dare he have had this Bugaloo boy on his show? And it's, oh boy. I mean, the problem with the Bugaloo boys, the problem with libertarians is an ideal, and even the problem with the actual, white supremacist far right at this point, the way most of the far right are operating right now, is an ideological problem. Okay? Now, obviously, people going around and committing hate crimes, that's not an ideological problem. That is not an ideological problem. If someone is committing a hate crime against people of color, someone's committing a hate crime against LGBT people or against women, that's not an ideological disagreement. At that point, people have the right to defend themselves. Any oppressed person who is under attack has the absolute right to protect themselves, to fight back, okay? No compromise on that. But if someone is walking around saying libertarian, right-wing things, the response needs to be arguing with them. Needs to be winning them to a better position. And the way you do that is not by screaming at them. It's not by putting a label on them. Look, folks, everyone loves to call Trump supporters racist, and a lot of them are. But if you call a Trump supporter racist, you have accomplished absolutely nothing. I do not know anyone who has ever been in an argument with a Trump supporter and said, "You're racist," and the Trump supporter said, "Wow, by golly, I am racist. My goodness, I am going to stop supporting Donald Trump. You put this label upon me and you called me a racist, and I realized that I was in fact a racist, and on that basis I have decided to stop." That never happens. Never happens. Okay, now if you want to argue that the position that they're taking is racist, you need to demonstrate to them how it's racist and show them the implications of what they are arguing and how it has racist implications and how maybe they need to reconsider it. That's worthy. But if you just shout racist, you've accomplished nothing. You have accomplished absolutely nothing by doing that. And this Bugaloo boy, it sounds like, he's a libertarian. He's an anarcho-capitalist. And he's sympathetic to the Black Lives Matter movement. He's sympathetic to LGBT rights. But he believes in this ideology called libertarianism. And this is the wildest thing, folks. I have told this story. I'm bitter about this, but this story, it just keeps coming up in my mind. Back 2008 election, there was a candidate running for office by the name of Ron Paul. Ron Paul was running for office. And in my little tiny college campus in the middle of Ohio, all these people, all these young people started supporting Ron Paul. People who were just the most normal, mainstream people were supporting Ron Paul. And some of what Ron Paul said about U.S. foreign policy was good. But I realized that Ron Paul was pushing an ideology that said capitalism is not the problem, that the USA is already a communist country, and that there's a conspiracy by, the communist Illuminati, and that we need real capitalism, which means we privatize everything, and we need to get rid of every social program. And what libertarians believe is abhorrent to me. It is absolutely abhorrent to me. And I said to the communists that I was working with, we need to refute libertarianism. And they said, no, it's fine. We'll just build the movement. I said, no, you don't understand. People are waking up and turning against these wars and turning against, the system. They're waking up, and instead of becoming anti-capitalists and revolutionaries, they're becoming libertarians. And the communists said to me, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. You just got to build the movement. Build the movement. No interest in dealing with an ideological problem. Libertarianism is an ideological problem. It pushes the idea that we need capitalism. We need cutbacks. Libertarianism is an ideological threat. And I raised this with the communists. And they said, oh, it's not important. Build the movement, build the movement. They just want to keep building their little anti-war rallies and, you know, whatever. Well, now, fast forward, now there are huge libertarian and right-wing currents of the U.S. population. People who think the government is corrupt and works for big corporations. People who think that the wars are wrong. People who think that the police state is out of control. And their answer is, we need real capitalism. Oh, God. But no interest in ideology. No interest in ideology. At first, they just told me, oh, just build the movement. Now, they just say, oh, just cancel these people. Call them racist. No, there's an ideological problem. The only way to defeat libertarianism is with ideology. You have to understand Marxism. You have to understand socialism. You have to understand what Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels and all these people wrote about. There is a problem here. It used to be when people woke up and realized the system was bad, they automatically became revolutionary, anti-imperialists, Marxists, socialists. Now, people wake up and they realize the system is bad, and especially if they live in red states, oh, they become libertarians, bugaloo boys, whatever. The only way to resolve that problem is with ideological education. And part of that ideological education is going to be engagement. You're going to have to learn to argue against what these people say, which means you're going to have to actually bring your ideas to these people, tell them what you think, listen to their response, let them say what they think, and engage. If you want to refute bad ideas, you have to know what bad ideas are. You have to know what the response of the bad ideas to your ideas are. This is pretty basic. The libertarian, alt-right, Alex Jones threat is an ideological threat, and it requires an ideological solution. And build the movement, man, come to the next rally, and shut up, racist, is not going to resolve the problem. What Jimmy Dore did is exactly what people need to do. Exactly what people need to do. They need to find people that are of this viewpoint, find where there is common ground, find where there is not common ground, and engage. The real reason that most leftist groups don't want to debate the far right, the real reason, is not out of some big moral principle. You know, I always heard this when I was around the certain party I was in. You know, oh, we never engage racists. We never engage the far right. Never. Oh, we're too good for that. We would not dignify their poison with a response. We are so pure. And bullshit. Bullshit. The real reason the group I was in didn't engage the far right is because the leaders of the group were dumb as a box of rocks. Okay? The people at the top of the organization were dumb as a box of rocks. They didn't know Lenin from a pipe organ. They couldn't argue for their positions at all. Because there was this attitude in the group that ideology and facts and history doesn't matter, and that all that matters is building protests. I was told over and over and over again that I was not a real activist because I actually knew facts and history. I was told many times that, quote, only white people are interested in this stuff. And that's why they would never debate the far right. They would never debate the far right because these people had to be at the center of attention all the time. They had to be, and that was, oh my goodness, these people had to be the center of attention all the time. If there was a rally, they were the speakers. If there was going to be a book published, they had to write it. I mean, they had to be the center of attention at all times. And they were dumb as a box of rocks. They were good at staging rallies around the latest trendy liberal cause. Whatever the latest trendy CNN, MSNBC liberal cause was, they would sit there and go, okay, how can we reserve the permit and set up a stage? And that's what they wanted. That's all they cared about. And if our organization was to actually engage and debate against right-wing ideas, they weren't going to be the star. They weren't going to be the center of attention. Somebody who actually knew their shit would have to be the center of attention, and that's why we didn't do it. And that drives me crazy. All my classmates in college were becoming libertarians and all of that, and I was alone trying to argue with them. But my organization, oh, they did nothing about it. Why? Because we're too busy feeding the egos of some boomers. Big problem. And that's really what it gets down to. It really gets down to it. That's really what it gets down to. And it's just, they let this happen. They've let this happen. Look, the people that run, not just the group I was in, but the communist groups of the United States, they've let this happen. They said ideology isn't important. They said, only white men read books, which is a racist lie. I mean, this idea that people of color are not ideological or not literate is racist and offensive, right? I mean, if a white person said that, it would be offensive. But, it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous, right? But the left has embraced movementism. Movementism. And in response to that, their movement has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But they're not concerned about actually getting to new people, winning them to socialism. They're concerned about being king of the protest cage. And look how important I am. I called the rally. Anyone who speaks at the rally, they got to get through me. I control the microphone and the stage. It's this most childish, pathetic situation. Meanwhile, there are millions of people across the United States who we're waking up to oppose capitalism, to oppose the system, and they adopt crazy right-wing stupid ideas. Ideology isn't important. Fact isn't important. No platform, when it really gets down to it, I think what's really behind the no platform Antifa stuff, when it really gets down to it, what's behind it in essence is that the bourgeoisie supports that on some level. The bourgeoisie, they see certain sections of the ruling class, see the fascists as a threat to their power, right? When Hitler came to power, that was bad news for a lot of German capitalists. There were certain German capitalists who did very, very well, like Krupp and Tyson and Hallemer Schacht. But there were some other German capitalists who really weren't happy with it. And so, in the United States right now, the far right is a threat to many sections of the capitalist class. Not all of them. There are plenty of capitalists that love the far right, like my pillow, right? He loves the far right. That guy loves the far right. The pillow factory owner guy who makes my pillow, he loves the far right. Betsy DeVos, she loves the far right. But there are some other capitalists like Jeff Bezos and the Walton family, Bill Gates, who don't so much like the far right. But they really don't like communism. They really don't like socialism. They really don't like Marxism. So they want to help people to go fight the far right. They really want people to go out and fight the Boogaloo Boys and fight the Proud Boys. Oh, yep, they're all for that. But they don't want them actually preaching anything while they do it. They don't want them to actually build a left-wing movement that would actually mobilize to seize private property. They don't want them to build an actually class-conscious movement in order to defeat the right wing. So they've said, you can't engage these ideas. And I swear, it is the richest of the rich that see the far right as a threat to their power, have decided they're going to use the left as foot soldiers, but they're going to make sure they've sent the memo out that leftists are never allowed to spread their own ideas, never allowed to teach their own ideology, never allowed to explain basic Marxist ideology. That's what's going on here. During the Libyan war, I realized that something was deeply, deeply wrong, and I'm going to read to you what I wrote. All right. On the day Gaddafi died, October 20th, 2011, this writer was in Zuccotti Park. Occupy Wall Street was in full swing. In the park, the most prominent voices offered no sympathy for Gaddafi. The professional activists with liberal, social democratic, and anarchist perspectives, however, were not the only perspectives represented in the movement. Many young, unemployed people from across the country had come to Zuccotti Park to protest Wall Street. Midwestern and Southern youths, despite their ideologically confused and sometimes libertarian perspective, understood that Gaddafi was on their side. Among the young people in Zuccotti Park, it was well known that Gaddafi had sought to create an independent African currency, an affront to the U.S. dollar and the Federal Reserve bankers. Cynthia McKinney's documentation of the Obama administration's lies about Libya were well known far beyond the movement because of right-wing radio host Alex Jones, who had featured McKinney on his program and given her a platform that movement programs like Democracy Now! Had not. The socialist movement in the United States, in the aftermath of the new communist movement of the 1970s, and most especially after the fall of the Soviet Union, had retreated from the broad masses of people. It occupies various safe spaces like academia, the labor bureaucracy, and middle-class pockets within the urban centers. It has come to see the broad masses of people as its enemy, and populism, i.e. attempts to mobilize the broad masses of people, as a great danger. However, the history of the socialist movement in the United States tells a very different story. The strength of Eugene Debs and the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, USA, and the Black Panther Party was their ability to mobilize millions of people around a socialist program designed to improve living conditions and meet the needs of the people. Socialists did not become strong by embedding themselves among liberal activists, but by going directly to the masses and providing aid and leadership amid times of economic hardship. Leftist politics, where it has been successful in places like Libya, has always been populist in its orientation. Marx wrote about the proletariat and its struggle to seize control of the means of production from the bourgeoisie and organize the economy to serve public good rather than profits. The strength of communists has always been their ability to organize the most downtrodden in society by emphasizing class solidarity. Communists opposed racism with the slogan, black and white, unite and fight. Communists were able to win millions of white workers to oppose Jim Crow segregation during the 1930s by explaining that racism hurt all working people and was a tool of the capitalist bosses. Communists did not speak of shaming and punishing those who held white privilege, but rather of the need to raise up all working people, giving special attention and priority to those who faced the greatest discrimination. Why was it in Zuccotti Park that all the professional socialists, all the professional organizers with George Soros and the NGOs, all the, anarcho-liberal types were celebrating the death of Gaddafi? But all these confused Alex Jones libertarian kids from the Midwest were mourning Gaddafi's death. Why was that? Well, because the left in the United States has been co-opted and manipulated. Meanwhile, a lot of people that actually understand, who the enemy is, have an ideological confusion. We need to build a real Marxist left in the United States. We absolutely have to get out of this absolute mess, right? That because Marxism has turned its back on the broad masses of people and retreated into safe spaces like college campuses and academia and the labor bureaucracy, and because of the fact that millions of Americans are angry at the system and ready to fight, the libertarian current has the upper hand. The libertarian current, many young people who get mad at capitalism become libertarians. They don't become Marxists. And it is our job to change that. It is our duty to reverse that trend. No one's going to reverse it except us. We're the ones that have to reverse it. Right? We have to go to the masses with ideology. I used to say for years, the problem is we need to be in the streets. That was our mantra, years coming out of the financial crisis, etc. We need to be in the streets. We need to build the movement, be in the streets. Well, that was wrong. Look, there is all kinds of protesting happening across the United States right now. People are protesting on Black Lives Matter. People are protesting against, immigrant rights, for immigrant rights. People are protesting against capitalism. There's labor struggles going on. Struggles happen naturally. They are spontaneous. The role of the vanguard, if you read What is to be Done by Vladimir Lenin, the role of the vanguard is not to make spontaneous struggles happen. That happens anyway. The role of the vanguard is to give an ideological orientation, to win the workers involved in these struggles, to understand that capitalism is the problem and that socialism is the answer, to make sure that the spontaneity of the masses doesn't become hijacked by the old system and sucked into the old system, but rather to provide the ideology and understanding that leads the struggle of the masses toward the actual revolution that we need. That is the role of the vanguard party. The role of the vanguard party is not to build the movement. The movement builds itself. Protests happen. Demonstrations happen. When people are oppressed, they rise up. Mao in the Little Red Book, he said, where there is oppression, there is resistance. But resistance alone does not lead to socialism. It requires the intervention of those of us who understand what's going on and have the ideology. Requires an ideological shift. It requires us to go and lay the groundwork for the spontaneous uprisings of the masses to actually lead to something good, not lead to the dead end of the old system or libertarianism or whatever. This is pretty basic. You know, in Russia, before the Russian Revolution, there was a group called the Black Hundreds Party. They were awful, anti-Semites, racist, reactionary. Lenin sent members of the Bolshevik Party to go to their meetings and argue with them and win them to socialism. And he didn't tell them to join the Black Hundreds Party. He didn't tell them to, say, oh, you guys are great, we're anti-Semites too. Of course he didn't say that. Lenin said to go find the workers who were in the Black Hundreds Party and win them away. And why did Lenin say that? And this is something that drives me crazy. Why did Lenin say that? Because the kind of people who can become left are the kind of people who can become far right. And that is something that people don't want to hear. People get really angry if you point that out. But it's true. It is absolutely true. The German Communist Party and the German Nazi Party recruited out of the same neighborhoods, folks. In Weimar, Germany, the Social Democratic Party, the Reformist Socialist Party, was among the factory workers. And among the factory workers who were conservative, there was the Christian Democratic Party. Those were the mainstream parties. But among the desperately poor and unemployed, there was the Communist Party and the Nazi Party. Why? Because the Communist Party and the Nazi Party both talked about a revolution. The Communist Party and the Nazi Party both talked about destroying the current order. Just so happens the Nazi Party wanted to, carry out a revolution that was horrendous and killed millions of people and led backwards and tried to create some kind of medieval hierarchy and ultimately led to the Holocaust and the slaughter of millions of people. Communists, on the other hand, wanted a revolution that would totally overturn capitalism and create a whole new world. But people who were ready to fight were the kind of people that would join the Communist Party or the Nazi Party. However, the people who were comfortable and still had jobs in those factories, they were the comfortable, stable folks. They joined the Social Democratic Party or the Christian Democratic Party. This idea that people that might get taken in by right-wing demagogy should be canceled for the rest of time. No. That's my point, folks. We need, the fact that this young man in Michigan, he's angry at the government, he's angry at the system. He should be angry at the system and become a communist. He shouldn't be angry at the system and become a Bugaloo boy. He shouldn't be angry at the system and become a libertarian. He should be angry at the system and become a communist. But if our approach is that nobody who ever, adopts these ideas is worth engaging with, and we should never learn to engage with these people, we should never learn to refute their arguments, then they're just going to keep becoming Bugaloo boys. They're going to keep becoming right-wingers, right? The fact that the communist movement has turned its back on the broad masses of people, failed to engage them, and this is leading to an epic disaster. The left is shooting itself in the foot. Look, folks, it's just sad, right? The internet censorship, right? There's silence in people, right? Trump, president of the United States, even when he was the president, before he left office. He was banned from Twitter, right? They can ban anybody from Twitter now for practically any reason. And YouTube and Facebook, they can just say, well, you're done. And I spoke out about this. A number of people spoke out about this and said, not good. And there are all these people on the left, oh, what are you defending right-wingers for? Oh. And what happened? What happened, folks? The British Socialist Workers' Party, they're gone. Now, Struggle La Lucha, the Socialist Unity Party, they're gone. I mean, come on, folks. This should be pretty basic. If you empower the capitalist state to silence people, who are the enemies of the capitalist state? The communists. Come on, folks. It's not that hard to figure out. You know, I mean, it's just, I mean, we have to get out of this rut, right? Politics in our time is not like going to a baseball game or a football game or a soccer game, right? If you're playing soccer, if you're playing football, you want the ref to make calls against the other team, and you don't want him to make calls on your team. And if the ref makes a bad call and it benefits your team, you applaud. If the ref makes a call that benefits the other team, you know, often people will boo and not be happy about it. That's baseball. That's football. That's soccer, right? It's basketball, okay? But we need to get through our minds. Number one, the Democrats are not our team. Joe Biden is not our team. Kamala Harris is not our team, number one. Number two, the referee, i.e. Silicon Valley, i.e. the capitalist government, is our mortal enemy and wants to destroy us. Okay? So, no, we should not be cheering for the ref making bad calls against the other team. Doesn't benefit us, it benefits Joe Biden. And if they can do it to the other team, then they can do it to us because they are our sworn mortal enemy. Come on, people. It's basic. It's basic. It's basic. We shouldn't be supporting tech censorship at all, number one. Number two, there is nothing wrong with Jimmy Dore or Caleb Maupin or anybody engaging with Bugaloo Boys or right-wingers or white supremacists or whoever. Nothing wrong with it, right? Nothing wrong with it. If they were embracing their ideas and saying, oh, you know, libertarianism is the answer, or oh, white supremacism is the answer, obviously they wouldn't be on the left anymore. But engaging these people, no. And you'll notice, anytime any of these people talk to people, they immediately shout, see, they want to unite with the right. No, we don't. I don't want to unite with the right. I'm not saying we should form a united front with any of these right-wingers, but there you go. So that's my rant about Jimmy Dore.